Welcome to the Heart to Heartland podcast. Here are your hosts.
Welcome back to Heartland. It's your two hosts, Izzy and Soile here.
Hi, everybody.
And today we're going to talk about fan fiction, but before we do, let's just go through the updates. Jessica Steen is doing, or actually, when you're listening to this, she has already done this, a podcast with Story Mill. It's about her role in Supernatural.
I guess next week you'll really find out how I feel about it.
Yeah. And then Michelle Nolden did this interview with Cisse Arts, where she talks about Lake Shorts Film Festival, was it? And free range children and other stuff. So I'm gonna link it to the description if you want to read it. Other news, Sean Roberts, who plays Sam, is appearing at the Stock event April 29th till May 2nd, and that's in London, Ontario. It's about his roles in Resident Evil and Diary of the Dead sequels, I think.
Is it a meet and greet?
I don't know, actually. I think so, maybe, yeah. You want to go there and be like...
Yeah, wait, let me write the dates down. What did you say?
April 29th and May 2nd. So next weekend and...
Oh, gosh.
A little over.
All right, I'll write that down.
Yeah. And then we have Alicia with a new project. It's a Netflix show, another one that she's doing, My Life with the Walter Boys, and it's currently filming in Calgary. So interesting.
And I'm so happy for her.
Yeah.
Very happy for her.
Her character is a recurring character, so we'll see if that means something for Heartland. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah. Michelle Morgan partnered with Thriving for Food for Earth Day, which is free online organic gardening course. So that was pretty interesting. And then Amber's been doing these short videos about fan favorite moments with Amy with Up Faith and Family. So far, she's talked about the scene with Spartan, from the first episode where they join up, and then season 5 with the Liberty work. So I'll post those in the description as well. And then Katame, who played Adam, has been putting out new music with Johnny Ill and Fade, and it's called New Heights. And Dempsey Prick, who played Wyatt, is selling some of his clothes on Grailed. So today we're talking about fan fiction, or actually reading fan fiction, because we're going to do another episode later on with writing fan fiction. Do you read fan fiction a lot, like in general or Heartland related? Like,
I used to read it a lot. I don't remember the last time I read fan fiction religiously like I used to, and look forward to it every week, like different authors. I think I only ever read Heartland fanfic, though. I don't think I ever got into it otherwise.
Was it all like Jack and Lisa's stuff, or?
Yeah.
You knew what you wanted.
Yeah.
I used to read more, but I feel like lately, like overall, I just don't have time to read books, so I don't have time to read fan fiction. So I haven't read anything in a while. But I do write fan fiction, so that's also one of the reasons why I don't read them that much, because when I'm trying to write something, I'm like, I don't want to mix that up with something that I've read. I'm like, did that happen in my story, or was that Yeah, so I've read like all kinds of Heartland fan fiction. I've maybe looked into other fandoms occasionally, but not like...
Well, I recently discovered that people write and read fan fiction about real life people, like not just the characters, but the people who play them. Yeah. And I don't know if that's a well-known thing, but I recently found that out, like that's a thing.
Yeah, I've seen that happen in the past, and it's like, I don't really know how to think about that, because it's like, I get that it's fictional, but it's like, I don't know. It's a little strange maybe for me,
I
but
know, and like that's saying a lot because my level of strange is like very, 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 I tolerate a lot, but it's like fan fiction for real people who have like real life partners and real life families. It's like, I don't know. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's a little not right.
yeah, I know some people are like okay with it, like the people who it's written about, but it's I don't know, like in general, I would say like maybe not everyone is.
Yeah. I guess it also depends what you're writing about too.
Yeah, like if it's like something like innocent, it's like whatever, it's like
Yeah.
cute maybe, but like if you go like really like mature, like
Mhm.
it's
Yeah, your kids may be on the internet reading that, so
yeah. The places I've come across Heartland fanfiction are if you don't count Facebook comment section, fanfiction.net, Archive of Our Own, and Wattpad. And I know there's some on Tumblr, but not like that many. And it's funny because if you're like a Heartland fan, you can choose if you read fanfiction about the books, like based on the books,
right.
or the show, because it's like a different thing.
Yeah,
But I think there's a lot more fanfiction around the show.
for sure. I'd
Yeah.
say so.
I feel like in the past, a lot of the stories were about Ty and Amy, but I feel like there's a lot of Jack and Lisa fanfiction going around.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, because when I was taking screen caps for the post that I made on Instagram, there was a lot of Jack and Lisa fanfiction. So
I'm
interesting.
searching right now.
You're like, sorry, can we pause this?
I'm on fanfiction.net.
Yeah.
Just gonna type that in. What? So where were you looking?
Fanfiction.net. And you can filter out like if you like certain pairing or certain characters or certain rating or genre or whatever. So it's kind of good in that sense, but it's also not the greatest side. And I feel like Archive of Our Own has a better filtering system, but then at the same time, there's not a lot of stories. Before we get into your comments on our Instagram page, I wanted to read this message I got through Tumblr. And it says, I know you are going to speak about fan fiction on the next podcast. I just want to put in my 2 cents. Not that you asked for it. I do enjoy reading the stories. What I do not enjoy is that you get into a story and they just stop writing. I was reading a Lisa and Jack one called Life Will Go On, 17 chapters, and it just stopped. Last updated in March 2019. If they were not going to finish, they should have at least taken it down. Just my thoughts. Thanks for listening.
Oh my god, was that written by me?
It was sent by MHJ, so if that's you, then
Okay, maybe it is. That's amazing.
like, how do you feel about that? Like,
well, I would be just as upset and demanding as this person.
yeah.
For sure. Oh, that's funny. That made my whole day.
I replied, I get the frustration, but also coming from the writer's perspective, I know there are many reasons why some people don't get to finish their stories. Sometimes they just don't have time or something drastic happens in real life, and the last thing you're going to think about is a fan fiction you once wrote online. Sometimes the inspiration just disappears and you move on, but I also know that sometimes some people have actually died and the stories stay after them, so there's no one there to delete them. It's a double-edged sword because on one hand, if people like the unfinished fic so far, they can always go and reread it, even if it isn't finished. But on the other, it can cause those frustrating feelings that something so great was never finished.
Wow, that was so beautifully written. Sorry, I'm on Wattpad right now.
Hey, focus. No, but when I think about the current state of the world, it can be both a good thing to write something like uplifting and like hopeful, but at the same time, if your life is in shambles, you're probably trying to just, get up every day and go on with your life. So I get it, but also it's like you never know the stories behind the,
And I remember like how many fanfics I never ever finished because I just like ran out of inspiration for it, or I was like, yeah, that's all I can write on that. Like sometimes that's just the end of it, I guess.
Yeah, I've finished most of my fics, but then there are some that I was like, I don't know what, I'm like, I don't feel like doing this anymore, or just like some other story took over and, I just kind of forgot about that. But yeah, I can understand that sometimes it can be frustrating when you're really getting into a story and then it just stops.
Wow, some of this stuff is nuts.
You're reading the descriptions?
Yeah, this isn't even a Jack and Lisa one. This one's called Kidnapped. The story starts when Amy comes home from Europe, but Amy is not the Amy who left. This Amy is like the original Amy, more outspoken, won't be pushed, and she'll stand up for herself because she got kidnapped.
Yeah.
That's dark.
Yeah.
Ty's secret past. I mean, is it really a secret?
Depends what the secret is.
Ty, Amy, life after marriage. Baby number 2. Lindy and Jackson. Wow. And these have like thousands of clicks on them too.
I love that there's like so many things you can choose from, like whether it's characters or like storylines, like whatever it can be. It's like, this is not something that's happened on the show, but doesn't mean it's not good entertainment.
It's yeah, that's exactly it. There's never a dull moment, and it's very creative.
Yeah.
Susan on Instagram said, I check for new fanfics daily on fanfiction. I read short or long, doesn't matter. I read mostly from iPad or phone, not really a fan of crossovers. My favorites are Jesus-centered. Favorites or ones that have stayed with me are mostly from Wildflowers 606, The Real TC, TN Walk, 7 Rach, and Alberta Dreams. I have always loved The Real TC's fanfic.
Yeah, I love how much she does research and like gets into the minds of the characters, and it's like reading a book, really.
Yeah, agreed. It was I always had a hard time getting into certain, just any Jack and Lisa fanfic, because it's like, if this isn't like the characters, I'm not going to read it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So certain authors could really capture the characters, like, and I found The Real TC really did that. I always looked forward to the new fanfic. What, every week, I think it was? Oh gosh.
Yeah, there was a long pause with one of her recent ones, but she finished the story. I don't know if you've read the end of it, but
I haven't read it in years. I'm gonna actually pull up my favorite one from her if you wanna.
Yeah, and while you're looking it up, I was just thinking, because I asked like, where do you read it from? Like, do you use your phone or laptop or whatever? And I feel like for me, I can't really read from laptop. It feels sort of strange, but then on the phone, it's kind of like holding a book, I guess, and that way makes this like, I don't know, it just feels more natural to read it from a phone than from a laptop.
For sure, I agree.
Yeah. HL Horses says, I'm not sure exactly when I started reading fanfiction, but I know it was pretty close to when I finished catching up to the live seasons. I read it pretty often, but not Heartland specifically, as there aren't too many these days. I usually read on fanfiction.net with my phone, but also Tumblr, as that's where someone posts these days. I leave comments occasionally and probably should do it more. Depending on the story, I may like long or short chapters. I like both one-shots and longer stories. Some stories that have stayed with me are Lost by me, When Jack Forgets, Through It All by Michaela, a few of the stories by Heartland writers and a lot of the older Jack and Lisa stories. Can't remember a lot of them at the top of my head, but these days I usually read fan fiction from other fandoms just since Heartland doesn't have many, which is kind of depressing. There was like around season 8 till like season 9 or 10, there was like a lot of Heartland fan fiction. I think the European storyline really like ruffled some feathers, so people started writing like fix-it fan fiction or their takes or like whatever, and it was crazy.
Yeah, there's a fanfic is where all the frustrations come out, you know?
Yeah.
So, and it shows because a lot of the fanfic is just so well, beautifully written that it's like this could have actually been on the show, you know?
Yeah. Was the Michaela one the one where Lisa gets hurt? Do you remember Through It All?
Okay, yeah, so I'm on Michaela's right now. Through it all, well, the description is it says my take on how Jack and Lisa's lives continue after the show. The troubles and events they deal with as a married couple set approximately 5 years, maybe a few more, after season 10.
So season 15. Interesting.
Right. Crazy, because like we're here. I believe that was the one where she does get hurt.
Because I remember it was really beautifully written and just like,
yeah,
I don't know, the way she wrote is just like, damn.
Yeah, Michaela was very, very well. Very knew those characters very well. She has 21 chapters written of that. So the author is Michaela fanfiction.net. You guys have to check it out. It's some of the best. The last update was 2017.
Oh man, that long time ago.
Old. Are we old?
Yes. To the previous comment. Yeah, to the previous comment, there's a addition. I could read this because Susan also added, I'd like to add I started Lost on Tumblr, but not all the chapters are available, and I I linked them up. So
yeah, that's the fanfic you write. Is it not available? Is that what she said?
Oh, it was, but sometimes the links on Tumblr kind of unlink. So I was like, I sent her the tag that she can use to see them all.
Right. Okay. That's good. You do that for me with the spoiler page that you.
Yeah. I'm like, here you go.
Okay, perfect. Next comment from Michelle Morgan Love. I started reading probably when I started watching the show back in season 9. Obviously, I'm obsessed with your stories. She's talking about Soile because they come so alive in my head, and I think they've actually happened on the show. I really loved In Deep Water. I hope you continue with it someday. Also, the Christmas stories, like the one where Luke came back to visit the year after Marion died, and there was a lot of drama. And also the one where Katie disappears and they all eventually find her at the treehouse. And I got so obsessed with Identity on fanfiction. It was set in 2007 when Marion died, but the circumstances were wildly different. Georgie was already a part of Lou's life. Amy and Lou were at odds for totally different reasons. Well, mostly different. And Marion was the villain throughout the whole thing despite being dead. I hope the author continues with that one because it just made me feel a lot, especially the baby Georgie stuff.
That sounds intense.
Like, link right now?
Yeah, I need to look it up after.
God, you gotta be kidding me with this stuff. What?
Yeah,
that's amazing.
The In Deep Water story was about Lou and Peter. Like this, like happened way back. Like
I'm remembering it. Yes, I know exactly who wrote that one. That was
me? Who wrote that one? Yes, it was. There was a lot of trauma, but Katie almost died, and it just kind of made them get closer.
Katie?
The Julia Baker one.
Oh, I love Julia Baker.
Yeah, and I've done Christmas stories for every year for like 7 years.
Yeah, I read those though every year. I do read those because it's like it's not Christmas without the fanfic that you write. It's like that's something that I'm used to.
It gets harder every year because I'm like, what am I gonna do this year? Yeah,
we should brainstorm together and collab on a story.
We should.
Oh my god, wouldn't that be great?
I might do that next year. I might
That actually
start
kind of
writing
sounds
the
fun, to be honest with you. Should
yeah.
we like take turns writing fanfic? The same
Yeah.
fanfic, but like
I'm like, this story is about Amy and Lou. Why are you writing about Chuck and Lisa? You're like,
stop. Yeah, that would happen. So you guys
oh,
should be excited. It'll be like the best Jisa fanfic for Christmas.
no, but I kind of love it. Yeah, I should really
Dust your pencil off.
Yeah. Then the next comment is from Smoking Holsters. I've been reading Heartland Fix for many years, as many as 12 probably. I read and wrote others before, like Law and Order. These days I only read fanfiction on fanfiction.net and Tumblr, and the truth is, I guess the only fanfic I currently read is yours, mine's, since I just don't have the time between writing my own and rereading my own, so I can keep track of where I am. There isn't much of archive of our own, and as we've discussed, I can't figure Wattpad out at all. Sorry. I use an iPad for both writing. I have a real keyboard with Bluetooth and reading. I used to comment when I read others' work, but as I said, I don't do much that anymore. My favorite tropes involved a strong Amy character. I'm pretty fed up with Amy Chase stories, as I find them all in pretty bad taste with her needing to be saved. I'm not really interested in fics with harm and violence, characters being drugged, kidnapped, or tormented, etc. No real preference for long or short stories or chapters as long as they make sense and are written fairly well. I think my favorite fic is incomplete, as you know. It's called Stands for Courage by Heart of Chaos, about Lou fighting cancer and Caleb. It just struck me as an excellent, thoughtful story, and I think about it a lot. You didn't ask which is interesting, and I did mention it before. Yes, I do write and publish Heartland Fanfiction. Yeah, so we're gonna do a separate episode about writing, but I wanted to say that there's a lot of like, I don't know, is it too harsh to say like torture porn with Amy? Like, just
There's
like,
some pretty messed up stuff on the
yeah.
internet
I
about
haven't
the
read
female.
them, but I've heard people are like, have you seen this? Like, what's wrong with people?
That's what I mean. There was like 3 kidnapped ones when I went on Wattpad. So
Yeah,
it's like, bye. But he mentioned Laura,
yeah,
our dear friend.
yeah.
How long has it been? She sadly passed away. Oh gosh, it's been a while.
Yeah,
I think about her son all the time.
yeah. Sometimes I have like Facebook memories where she's like involved, and I'm like, damn.
Yeah, I still have her on Instagram.
Me too. I just can't like delete. I don't
I
know,
know like
unfollow or what.
that just feels wrong.
Yeah,
But if any of you would remember her, she was known as the Carrie James fan.
yeah.
So yeah, she did write. She was a very beautiful person, and she wrote amazing fanfic.
Yeah,
Very
that story is like really hard to read at parts because it was just so
she
realistic
was
and
living it. She was writing this for Lou, but she was in her real life. She was fighting cancer, and she lost. So it's like
yeah,
that story really hits home on so many different levels. And like you said, that's going to be on the internet forever. Like she left her
yeah.
mark.
But I do kind of like that there's something that we can always kind of go back to, because it's just like people just disappear, but then it's like, no, they were here, because there's something.
It's so different when it's an internet friend, because there's been quite a few people over the years who have passed away in the fandom, and it's like it's weird when, I don't know, what you talk to them every day on the internet, and the next thing you know, that's just it. It's like so
Yeah,
different to deal with death over the internet. I mean, it's awful in general, but like, you know what I mean? It's different when
yeah, because it
person on
creates
screen.
that illusion that they're still there, because you don't really
Yeah.
see it happening, or like it's not really real in a way.
And if you've ever had the chance to meet them in person, then it's like, oh wow, that's like the last time I'm ever gonna see
Yeah,
them. So yeah, I like how the art, like they leave behind their art and
yeah,
we still get to read it, their gift to the world. So
yeah, their voice out there in a way.
I love that.
Yeah.
Kelly said, I started this year when I had watched every episode of Heartland and wished there was more of them. Yeah, I feel like fanfic is a lost art.
Yeah. For me, fan fiction was kind of the way into the fandom,
Yeah.
even though there were new episodes coming. So, but I see this pattern a lot. Like people are like, then what? Like, especially now with the shorter seasons, it's kind of like, hmm?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Then Abby said, I don't remember when I started reading it, but I read mainly on Wattpad.
Really?
Yeah.
I like Wattpad's kind of like the newer site for fanfic, right? Or how
Yeah.
long has it been around for longer and I'm just now learning about it?
I would say it's probably newer than fanfiction.net, but I feel like there have been like, because I think the show Alicia's doing is based on like a story on Wattpad.
Huh, what?
I think so. Let me check.
No way. Okay, that's crazy.
But it's not always like fan fiction. It's just like whatever you.
People who just write stories, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll read this comment then while you look for that.
Yeah.
Regal Artist said, I started reading Heartland fanfic a few years ago. Before that, I've read other fandoms too. Heartland I read mostly on fanfiction.net because on AO3...
Archive of Our Own.
Oh, nice. There aren't many Heartland fanfics. I only read on my phone. I only read Jisa and I prefer longer stories. Chapters shouldn't be too short. I read all genres if there is a happy end. I like that. Direct to the point and absolutely correct.
Yeah, it's a Wattpad story. My Life with the Walhurt Boys by Ali Novak. So
Wow.
it's kind of like a gateway into maybe publishing something one day. But I think when it comes to fan fiction, it's tricky because you can do it as long as you don't like make money out of it, because
exactly.
it's not your creation originally. So
yeah, exactly. Yep. Okay, so who do you have any personal favorite fanfic authors? Like your top 3?
oh gosh.
Besides yourself.
I mean, I love the ones that I've read recently, like Rachel's, and I don't know if I can say Michelle Morgan Love because I don't know if she's published anything. She sends me these like chapters like, what do you think? And I don't know if it's like exclusive or anything. And I loved Sarah, who was Java, the Wild One or something like that on Tumblr. I wrote a story with her way back in the day.
Really?
She wrote different kinds of stories around Heartland, like alternative universes and like background stories for Thai, for example, and some were more mature than others, and it's like not many people did that or do that. I don't know, because I've not read recently a lot, so I don't know. Like I feel like maybe I don't know if I've come across like a bad fan fiction that I've read, you know.
I have.
I guess it's like the first 3 lines or something, and I'm like, yeah, I'm out of here.
Bye. Yeah, exactly.
If it's not like, but yeah, I don't know. I probably don't have like top 3 or anything like that, but what you said, like as long as the writer has been able to tap into the character's mindset, like love it. Oh yeah, and Heartland Musings, I think, also wrote something. Oh, many.
There has been a lot. Are those like recent ones, like active authors?
Kinda.
Obviously, Michelle Morgan Love for sure.
Yeah, kind of. I think some of them are like, well, because I don't really go out there and I don't see, because people sometimes send things to me and I'm like, yeah, right. I'll read it.
I'd say the last time I read fanfic was 2017 when Michaela finished her story.
Wow, so it's been a long time.
Yeah, I haven't read fanfic in years. Unless if there's the odd time someone sent me a link and I'll read what they sent me, but
yeah, So I don't know if it's like how much stories are published these
Right.
days nowadays. There was one interesting story that like, because usually the stories I've seen are like about the main like ships and
Right.
around the other stories, but I saw recently like there's been stories like from a reader's perspective, like that's the thing in
Right.
many fandoms. So it's interesting that that's kind of bleeding into Heartland fandom as well. And then there were same-sex couples and different kind of like crossovers, and I don't know, I feel like it's kind of been changing a lot since I've read actively. So I don't know, maybe I should really check more what's out there because it's
I think I should too. See if
yeah.
any of it's, as good as it used to be.
Yeah, because it's like free literature, so
Yeah, right? Literally. Well, there are some people who are trying to sell it.
yeah,
But
well, that's something that I think about a lot, like because I write fan fiction, but I also read it, so I get kind of the both ends of the whole thing. But I feel like if you only read it, it can be hard to understand how much work goes into writing a fan
exactly.
fiction.
Yeah.
I understand it's like frustrating when the story is like good or like you want like new chapters every day, but at the same time it's like a hobby. It's free, like people usually have other things going on with their lives.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to kind of put that out there, like be respectful and
Yeah.
mindful.
Be patient.
Yeah.
Just chill. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's nice to know someone's like looking forward to you posting, but at the same time,
Yeah.
it can kind of, I don't know, maybe dampen the
Yeah.
whole
Well, it puts pressure on the author, and it's like if you want a good, well-written, next chapter, you're gonna give them a little bit of time because sure they could rush it and it ends up being awful and you're gonna complain about it. So
Yeah,
just let them do what they have to do and be patient about it because you're not paying for it. They're not getting paid for it.
yeah,
Everybody's doing it for free.
yeah. And it's nice if the feedback is only like something like great chapter or like I like this or like keep up the good work or just something simple, like even that keeps writers going.
Agreed. For sure. So these were probably my favorite artists or authors, I should say. They're also artists to me.
Yeah.
Would be obviously Michaela, and of course you. Lost is probably one of the best fanfics ever written, ever.
I
in the
should
world.
reread it because I do remember some bits, but I would
You can
probably
be like surprised by
like,
your own reading.
what? Like
Wow.
that happens?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then obviously the real TC. That one was called, let me double check, Wide River to Cross.
Yeah.
27 chapters, and it was only it was updated last November 16th, 2021, and it was started September 10th, 2014. Oh my
Yeah.
god. Yeah, that's a beautiful fic as well. I haven't read it in years, but I'm sure it's just as amazing as it was then.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Do you like happier stories or like angsty ones or like
I don't know, basically anything we haven't seen on the show.
yeah.
There was fanfic. Was it the real TC who wrote this? Maybe I'm thinking about my own fanfic. I don't know.
All right.
There has been a story written from in 714 in between two scenes. In between the scene where Jack asks Lisa to stay, and then the scene at the end of the episode where they get back together. Somebody wrote a fanfic of what happened in between that, and I'm starting to think it was me because I can't find it. So,
well, check your journal.
and I was about to
books.
I was about to say it's really good, but I'm like, oh, it's probably just mine.
Well, if it's everything you want it to be, then it has
Right.
to be good,
For sure.
But I do like those kind of scenes, like, because sometimes it's frustrating when the scene that happens at the end of the episode is like, oh, this is good, and then it's like, the credits roll, and it's like, but what happens after that?
It's like, I waited 427 days for this?
Yeah. How about like, do you like shorter or longer fics or?
I love the one shots when it comes to like Christmas and stuff, but I do love the long in-depth chapters like the real TC would write. Like those are like the perfect length. It was literally like getting a mini story every week.
Yeah.
I like the in-depth long chapters. Longer the better, honestly.
Yeah, I do prefer one shots because I'm a lazy reader. But I do appreciate like when it's well built, longer story. So it's like,
Well, it's hard to find the ones that have like 20 plus chapters. It's like, do I really want to get into this? I get that. And I feel
Yeah.
like maybe I wouldn't be that way if I found the fan fiction at 20 chapters, but like I read these fanfics from chapter 1 when the first chapter came out. So I felt like it was less overwhelming that way.
Yeah, I agree. Like if it's like 20 chapters in the like, oh, I don't know, like it just feels kind of like when you're watching a TV show and it's like, 10 seasons? I don't know.
Right.
But then once you get into it, you might be like, okay, it's a good thing there's like 20 chapters left.
Literally. Well, interestingly enough, I told you I met this random person on TikTok and now we're friends and we text all the time. And I got him to start watching Heartland. And he was like, it's funny because it's one of the main banners on Netflix when you log in because he's in Texas. He's like, all the time, I've just never watched it. And I'm like, it has like 15 seasons. And he's like, oh, that's probably why. Nobody wants to like, you see that many seasons and 200 and something episodes. And it's like, do I really want to dedicate the next 2 years of my life to watching this?
Because it's like once you start, I don't know, at least I feel kind of obligated to kind of continue to see the story through. So it's like,
well, especially if you do get caught up in it, because then it's like next episode, don't make any plans.
Yeah.
Order food because like you have a long ways to go. So I'm kind of glad that I discovered it when I did, or it would be so overwhelming. So when would you say that you started reading fan fiction? Was it to do with Heartland, or had you already been reading/writing it? Or was Heartland like your inspiration for it?
Well, before Heartland, I was really into Charmed, the original show.
I remember that. Yeah.
So I think that's when I started writing fan fiction. I don't remember if I read any Charmed fan fiction, but then when Charmed ended and I was kind of like, well, not a lot happening in that fandom. So I got into Heartland and then I was like, I don't know any of these people, and I was just like lurking in the shadows. And then I started writing fan fiction about the show. That was kind of how I introduced myself into the fandom. So I guess somewhere along the way, around season 6 maybe, I started reading.
Yeah, I'd say the same for me.
Yeah, Heartland fan fiction. I don't remember what would have been the first story because it was a while ago. But yeah, I feel like maybe I've always been more of a writer than a reader.
Yeah.
So
I think so. Well, do you recall the first Heartland fanfic you ever uploaded to the internet?
I'm gonna have to check the name because I still have it up on my blog. I don't want to revisit that because it's probably not very good. Oh, right. It was this like Ty and Amy engagement series because this is before they actually got engaged and people are like, we want to see them get engaged. And in this story actually Amy proposes Ty. There was like 4 different stories that became kind of the one thing.
Okay, I see.
So the first one was called Cold Feet, Warm Heart. The second one, Ring True. Third one, Happy Co, Unlucky. And the fourth one was called Darkest Before the Dawn. So it was funny when they actually had an episode called Darkest Before the Dawn after I had written that. And I was like, wait.
That's one thing about watching these characters for so long, you can write them as if you are them.
Yeah.
You spend a lot of time with them, hypothetically.
I'm just checking for my blog because I sometimes recommend fanfic I've read myself. And the first one I have is this fanfiction from Sarah, actually, who I talked about
Okay.
earlier. It's from 2013 and it's called Second Chances, and it's about Ty and Amy. So I would say I probably started reading 2013.
2013, so season 6/7.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say around there for myself too,
Yeah.
for sure. Because like, I mean, there's no Jack and Lisa for what, like 18 episodes total. Like, what else is there to do, right?
Right.
So I think, and then that's when you sent me I believe that was around the time you sent me your Lost fanfic for the first time, approximately.
Yeah, probably.
And then that's when I was kind of like, okay, fanfic's pretty cool. And especially finding someone who could, because I'm like, I don't want to waste my time if you can't even get these characters right. But that's why I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
at least I was like, at least I know you can write these characters effortlessly. So
Well,
that was probably what got me into I'm thinking that's probably the first fanfic story
wow, I'm an influencer. Speaking of like fanfic turn offs, like
God.
well, first of all, I was kind of scared that because, I was a big Ty and Amy fan. So I was like, I don't know if I know Jack and Lisa that well to write about them, but then I had the story in my head, so I was like, I'm gonna write it out. So that's definitely like what we said, like if the characters feel odd, it's kind of like, who are they? Like, and then the other thing, like, I don't like care much if your like grammar isn't like perfect, because I know mine isn't, but I'm trying my best. But it's like if there's just dialogue and not a lot of descriptive parts, I have hard time kind of getting into the story.
Yeah.
Because even if the dialogue is like good, I'm like, so where are they? Like, how do they like look at each other and what's going on? Like, I need that kind of structure a little bit more.
Agreed.
I would say those two are kind of my main like turn-offs with it.
Yeah,
like,
I'd say so too, for sure.
Yeah. I'm currently writing about Amy and Mitch, but then I'm always like planning on other stories at the same time, but I'm like trying to hold them off a little bit. But I've wondered how it would be to write something about like Rick, for example.
You're right. If we don't get Carl, I mean, you might as well. And maybe you can, like, if we don't get any backstory, maybe write like a backstory on how Rick and Carl met and fell in love, and I guess are having a child at some point. I don't know.
And their dog.
Right. Like, and how he became, I don't know, I guess a mayoral assistant for how many years. It'd be great. I think it would be an amazing story to write, and Aiden would probably love it.
He would act it out, like saying the lines.
Yeah, right.
No, but it's definitely something I've thought about, because there's a lot of, room to kind of.
There's a lot of potential there.
Yeah,
yes.
invent, but then I'm like, I don't know what that would be like. How would, I mean, we talked with Aiden, like, is Carl a cowboy, or like what's that? Well, this is kind of like more about writing fan fiction, but it's like you have to be on the same level as the character you were writing, and I don't know if I'm the same level with Rick, like the sass and everything. So I don't know. But it would be interesting to see more fics that are not about maybe the main pairings, but because I think in other fandoms there's a lot more to kind of choose from.
Yes.
So it's like, I think there's a lot of potential there, because I don't see a lot of people doing that.
I don't think anybody's done it yet, to be honest with you. I don't think it. And since we don't know much about Carl, you'd really have to just make up your own impression or idea of him, which could be fun.
But then imagine if he shows up and you've invented this whole person, and like, that's not Carl.
Yeah. You're right. I mean, what's the likeliness of that Carl
Yeah.
happening on the show? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I will be incredibly surprised if they bring Carl into the show. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Heart to Heartland. We will be back next week with another fun episode for you. So until next time,
Keep your noses clean.
and your powder dry.
Yeah. And if you read fan fiction, like, let us know which stories are good.
Yes, and if you write fan fiction, hit us up.
Yeah.
So, what do you guys think? I mean, these are just some sample chapters I whipped off. Come on, somebody say something.
Wow. Thanks, Lou. So I really am a loser.